All right. I'm going to hand things over to Alex Funk. He's going to be talking to you guys about starting from scratch. After this message, we're going to take a quick little breather. So please give Alex 100% of your attention. Take a lot of notes. He's talking to you about starting from scratch. Those of you that don't know Alex's story, Alex started, he was in AMPR. So we just talked about the team builder. We talked about changing somebody's life. That's Alex. Somebody 2 years ago was trying to qualify for their trip, and they talked to Alex individually in person and then connected Alex with their manager, Casey Fenlon. He got started. He came to training. Big dance. He tried to quit. His manager talked him into not quitting. He tried to quit again. His manager talked him into not quitting again. Then he went out and he sold $12,500 in his fast start. I'd say that's pretty strong. Then he had one more week. And this was the year, managers, if you remember this was the year that the region decided for the first time ever, if somebody sold 20K in their first 3 weeks, they could go on the trip. Alex was the only one in Central Region to do it. So the next week he sold $7,500. So he sold 20 grand in 2.5 weeks, three weeks. He made $5,000. He got to go to Jamaica. By the way, he almost didn't go. He was like, I don't know if I like to travel. I didn't know him. I had to talk him into it. I'm like, you are going on this trip. Right? I just signed him up for a conference. Like, if you don't like it, it's like, what are you talking about? We're going to Jamaica. So he got his passport. He went to Jamaica, had the time of his life. He was like, this is amazing. He came back and sold over his spring break. That summer, he sold another $35,000. He became the recommendation king, had 1,600 people on his call list. He didn't sell Cutco over the fall. Then by the way, he was like, I don't think I'm a team builder. I partnered with him to be a team builder last winter break. He had over 10 PRs, over 10. His team sold like $80,000 for the break. He won his own trip. He got to go with 3 of his buddies to Cabo. So he went to Cabo. Lucas Adi, who's on here, Jared Erickson, who's on here, and Devin, they all got to go to Cabo with Alex last year. Then he kept selling throughout the spring. He opened his own branch this summer. He did about $280,000, the number 8 branch in the nation. He just bought and closed on his first house as a 20-year-old. Successfully rented the rooms out. So he's house hacking. Other people are paying his mortgage, building wealth. And he's our sales manager in the Minneapolis pilot office, and he's going to be the pilot sales manager summer of 2021. I'm so excited to build with this guy. He's going to be talking to you about starting from scratch, which he has done quite a few times. Please take some notes. The floor is all yours, Mr. Funk.
All right. Thank you, Dane. Appreciate the introduction. That was very nice. So here, you guys, I have some slides right now. You can see Vector Connect. I know. Give me one second. There we go. Starting from scratch from me, Alex Funk. So please grab your notebooks. Please take notes. I'm on a time crunch in a sense, and so I might talk kind of quickly, and I want you to get everything that I'm about to share. So first thing I want to point out is the word scratch, right? Nobody here, right? Nobody's in training today, right? So nobody is essentially starting from scratch. Scratch is training. So you've all sold Cutco, especially if you're here today. You've sold a decent amount of Cutco, probably a lot of Cutco. Some of you definitely a lot of Cutco. And so the 3 things I really want to touch on is, number 1, belief system. Where is your belief system at with selling Cutco? I will say, like Dane said, I didn't sell last fall when I was at school. And so I came to winter break. I'm going to be honest, I was pretty nervous. I had about $65,000 in career sales, and I was still pretty nervous. So where's your belief system at? You probably aren't, some of you aren't, or most of you probably aren't at 65,000. So brainstorm is the second thing, and then where to begin is the third thing that I really want to talk about. So like I said, I was very nervous, and 100% of you should be nervous right now. Nervous it's actually a good thing. I think it's kind of funny. I was gonna touch on this, and I was gonna say, if you're nervous, it means that you care, and if you care, that's a really good thing. Well, I hopped on here. All of the rest of the region, you guys all hopped on. I had no idea. And Jack Ryan, Baller Pro, he messaged me in the chat. He's like, "You getting nervous?" And I messaged back, "Yeah, I actually am." And he said, "That's good. It wouldn't be worth it if you weren't nervous." And I thought, very fitting. If it's worth it to you, you're probably going to be a little nervous about it. That's emotional, right? That's an emotional feeling. That's a good thing. However, sometimes you have to switch from emotional to thinking logically. And logically thinking, like I said, nobody's in training today. We should all be confident. You should be very confident in your ability. 100% of the people here should be confident in hitting the trip or hitting the trip and getting paid. You can go on your own trip if you're not going with the Gulf Shores with North Star. But you should be confident. If you've sold over $10,000 and you're here, you're in the top 1% of reps in the history of the company. And if you're over $6,000, I think it's like top 10% at least in the history of the company, something like that. And so having trust in your abilities, being confident, trust your systems, right? Everyone, Central Region is great. North Star people specifically. We had the most trip winners last year. You should feel pretty confident you can get there, right? Trust the system, trust the people you're around, trust your manager. They've done it before. We've all done it before. You've done it before. That's the main thing. Starting from scratch, that's training. You finished training probably months ago, maybe years ago, and then since then you've sold a lot of Cutco. So where is your belief system at? This is a life thing as much as it's a Cutco thing. Positive expectancy. Do you expect the great thing to happen? Right? Not the good thing. Do you expect the really, really great thing to happen? I had a PC with Connor last year for the winter break push. And like I said, I hadn't really sold in the fall, Connor Marita. And he asked me my goal. We figured out my why. And I found out my goal was $20,000 for the push. That was my goal. And I had strong reasons why. I was trying to do back-to-back 20K pushes. I thought that would be really special, really unique. I also knew that I wanted to buy this house that I'm sitting in, and that was the first step in it. And so I needed to sell 20K, and then I needed to do this as a branch in the summer, and I needed to sell this around all of that. And we broke those things down long-term. And I knew I needed to sell 20K. Therefore, I just believed I was going to do it. There was no doubt in me because I knew I had the systems in place, and I believed it was going to happen. Whatever your goal is, find a strong why and attach to it and just know that it's going to happen. You got to have positive expectancy. Sales is a numbers game. You've probably heard it a million times before. So it starts and ends with what you believe. And what do you believe is going to happen for you with this push? Does anyone here know what that picture is of? I can't see the chat room because I'm sharing my screen, but throw it in the chat. It's not pudding. Does that even look delicious to anybody here? I don't know what it looks like. Can't see the chat, but that is cheesecake. That is delicious cheesecake. That's one of my favorite foods. I heard on the radio I think it was a couple days ago, they said something like cheesecake is the most popular Christmas dessert in America. Rightfully so. Really good stuff. And your leads right now, right? Your leads in the summer, it was the cheesecake. They were hot, they were whatever. Right now, your leads have cooled off and they've turned into delicious cheesecake. Do not fall into the trap thinking that your leads are cold, which means you can't call them. What really happened was your leads just fermented, if that's the right word, and they turned into delicious cheesecake, ready for you to take a big bite out of them, okay? Your leads have now cooled off because you didn't sell in the fall. Perfect time to call those people again. All you have to do, like I said, is take a bite. You got to bite in. And so those leads that you already have, they have the ability to create your entire push. And you have to believe that. Those leads will create your push in a lot of ways, mostly through recommendations. And so I want to show you guys a picture. I went back in my Google Calendar and I found this day. This is the first day of the push last year. So this is December 31st, 2019. And different world back then, 2019. But when I set this up, when I did the phone jam 2 days before, I called really hard and I set myself up a big first day. And the first demo on my entire push going for 20K was with Bugsy and Chris Seelan. All right. Bugsy and Chris were recommended to me by Bev and Dennis Kelsenberg in my fast start. I had tried to call Bugsy and Chris all summer of 2019 because I was told they were a Vegas chip. Okay. And so when Bev and Dennis gave me Rex, the first person they gave me was Bugsy. and they said, Bugsy loves Cutco. You have to call Bugsy. Never reached him all summer, whatever. I finally reached him in the fall, and look what the notes were I put. I just found this morning. I thought it was awesome. It said to call after Christmas, ... It was probably a soft rejection on the phone, right? I probably felt defeated. I was like, God dang it. That's my Vegas chip, one of them. Well, I called him after Christmas because that's what he said to do. And I ended up luckily setting them up as my very first demo of the entire push. That's a cold lead that had fermented. I booked it because I wasn't scared to call it. I kept good notes in my recs. I went and found them. And I felt really, really good. I was going to start my push with Dennis Seelan. Well, look what he bought, 189 CPO. That's my Vegas chip. I was not very thrilled. Jared Erickson actually field trained that demo, and I expected a big sale. I tried to put on a good show, and he had a bunch of Cutco. He was older. He just didn't buy a lot of stuff. Well, he gave me 15 recs. One of them is Gary Evanson. And Gary, when I called him, it's Gary and Betty. When I called him, he kind of rejected me on the phone, and he said, look, I don't want to see I don't want to buy a bunch of stuff. I do want one of those super shears. Bugsy told me them shears are awesome. I want to buy one from you. I said, sure. I had one in stock. I got him there. He wanted it to give it as a gift or whatever. I drove over to his house. And as I gave him the shears, I spent the time to just build some rapport, right? I built a connection. We had a great conversation. I said, hey, nice to meet you. I hope you enjoy the shears. Here's what I'm doing with this contest. Would you be willing to sit down and just see my presentation? I can make it so fast for you guys. I'll go 20, 25 minutes. As I got in front of him, I easily persuaded him to see the demo. Well, guess who was my very first ultimate set during that push? Gary and Betty Evanson. My first ever complete set. And so that obviously felt good, right? That capped off my week. It was on Miracle Monday during the push. And so that was created through some old leads and then through recommendations. Boom, right? They can straight up just create CPO for you. Bones, if Colleen is on here, she recognizes the name. As you can see, Bugsy, Bones, everyone in central Minnesota has a nickname. And so Bones I had called the summer before, and he set up a demo with me. He canceled. He was one of my dad's really good hunting and fishing buddies, all right? I am very comfortable talking to middle-aged moms and grandmas. Like, I feel good calling them. It's the hunting and fishing, like blue-collar guys. I don't always feel like super thrilled to call on the phone. And so Bones, I was a little hesitant to call him. He canceled on me, right? He wasn't in my leads list. He was in my canceled demos list. And Colleen goes, you got to call that guy right there, Bones. And I was like, no. I was like, he canceled on me, whatever. Long story short, called him, did the demo. And on the phone, he goes, oh my gosh, I didn't know you still did this Cutco thing. I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, we love Cutco. I was actually just going to buy some from Costco as gifts. And I thought, oh, perfect. Like, I'll show you the demo. Yeah, good thing I called. I showed up. Look what Bones bought. A signature set. He got his gifts, two cheese knives and a fisherman's solution. I didn't bonus anything because Bones had me in and out in 19 minutes because he was in a rush. He had work to do. Good thing I called Bones, huh? So another cool story. They might create leads for you. They might just buy a bunch of stuff. Do not give up on your old people because they're cold or because they canceled on you. You never know. This guy Bones, I wasn't thrilled to call him. Good thing I called him, right? So that's another quick story. Your old leads, they're the cheesecake, right? Your new leads, they're them cherries on top. You guys remember that picture? Cheesecake looked good, but it was the cherry sauce that really did me in anyway. And so last year, I sat on training and I listened to Dane. Dane was talking about he has the managers on training, and I sat during the brainstorm section. This is my original names list from training when I trained 2 years ago. Well, when Dane did the brainstorm section, I just did it again because I knew there was going to be people that I didn't show. Look at all the family I didn't show. Okay, family, friends, neighbors, church people. And look at this one, Kathy Kahl. She's a church lady from my town. Lucas Audie's on here. You know Kathy. And I wasn't thrilled to call her. She was on my list. She was someone I knew. She was, just a classic church lady. Well, Kathy was on my first day of the push again, same calendar snippet. She was my last demo of the night, 6:30 p.m. She was the night slot on New Year's Eve. And booked Kathy. And look, like I said, local church lady. Church ladies are nice, right? I didn't know how nice church ladies were. Want to see what Kathy bought? Yeah. She bought a signature set and she took care of gifts for the entire year for her 4 sons. Her 4 sons have a Facebook page, Minnesota Rack Stars, and she got them all a custom knife with MN Rack Stars on it. I bonused some stuff for Kathy, but that was the end of my very first day of the push. How good do you think that felt? I wouldn't have called Kathy if I didn't sit on training, redo a brainstorm list, and then have the courage to call the local church lady. And so Kathy, she bought a bunch of stuff. Her son, Joe, he shot a big buck this fall. And on Facebook, one of the featured pics, look at that. Joe loves his knife. And I'm guessing Kathy feels really, really good about that gift. All of that happened because I sat through training. I brainstormed the list. I mustered up the courage. She bought $2,500 worth of stuff. She's forever grateful because her son loves that present so much. She loves her knives. And I'm forever grateful because Kathy ordered $2,500 of stuff during my push and sent me to Cabo. So the new names, who haven't you thought of yet? Family. We don't all have huge families. I'll tell you right now, I still haven't called Kurt and Julie Funk. I don't know why. I thought of it this morning. I see Dane right now throwing his arms up. Hopefully nobody calls them now before this push. Yeah, still haven't called Kurt and Julie. Who are you related to that you haven't called yet? Don't even ask yourself why you haven't called them. Just put them on the list for this push. Okay? Family, friends, church. Who's your Kathy Kahl? Go find Kathy Kahl. Okay? Parents work. Who do your parents work with? Who are your former teachers? I just had someone ask me the other day, like, I feel like I'm out of leads. I said, have you showed every single person that's ever taught you anything in school? Any subject, any grade, any year? They said, no. I said, perfect. There's your list of 10 new people. Teachers, coaches, siblings, friends, college parents, friends, or college friends' parents, right? A lot of people here are students. Have you met anyone new this year? I know it's a little more difficult with COVID. Have you met anybody new this year? Ask them if you can call their mom because their mom cooks. I bet she does. Or else their kid probably wouldn't be here alive. Your ex-bosses, right? Me, I was an electrician with my dad. So that was one of my first demos. But if you worked anywhere, who was your boss? They're in debt to you, by the way. They'll probably do a demo because you worked for them at a grocery store or gas station doing the work they didn't want to do. Real estate agents, find their numbers on Google. Blue collar people in your town, number on Google. Who are the plumbers, electricians, construction workers? Look them up on Google. Their numbers are right there. They want you to call them. Professionals your parents deal with. For me, my dad's an electrician. All the guys that work at Viking Electric Supply, I got to call them all. I still have to. There's always new people. And then the last one, you guys, who are your neighbors? Who are your neighbors? And have you showed them Cutco? This one is going to probably blow your mind, and I wish this was made up. But when I called Gary Evanson, you guys remember Gary Evanson, right? Complete Set Gary. Super Shears Gary from a minute ago. When I called Gary, I said, hey, Gary, you know, I can drop off the shears. Could you give me your address? And this old guy on the phone, he starts giggling. He's like, Alex, you're kidding me? You don't know where I live? I'm like, Gary, like, no, like, what's your address? He said, Alex, I'm your neighbor. Look at this. This is about a 15-minute radius, 10-minute radius, 5-minute radius, Buckman, Minnesota. This is about a 3-minute radius. Here's about a 1-minute radius now. The blue mark is my house. Ready? Guess where Gary lives. There's one house besides my own. Ready? That's me. That's Gary Evanson. He's my neighbor. There's one house on the screen besides my own. I didn't even know there was a house in those trees, to be honest. I had no idea. And that guy was my first complete set. And so who are your neighbors? You guys probably live in cul-de-sacs or cities. You guys probably don't live in the middle of nowhere like I do. Who are your neighbors? And have you called them yet? And have you showed them Cutco? You can probably get their number in the local directory or from your parents. You have instant rapport because you're literally their neighbor. You have instant connection. You never see them anyway, as proof with Gary Evanson. I didn't even know he was a person. And if he says no, if I called Gary and he said no, would I ever seen Gary again and felt bad about it? No, because I didn't even know that there was a house in those woods. So who are your neighbors? That's my biggest tip, is go find your complete set that literally lives down the block. The last thing I want to touch on, a 10K push is exactly that. A 10K push. It's not a 10K day. It's not a 10K week, right? It's not a 10K, 3 days, 5 days, 8 days. It's 14 days. It's a push period. You have 14 days to sell $10,000. You don't win the push on day 1 or 2. You don't win the push the first week. You can set yourself up to win the push for sure, but you don't sell 10K your first day. It's a process. It's a push, and that's what it's supposed to be, right? Here's my first day, and I loaded my first day, right? That's 6 demos, my very first day of the push. I felt obviously really good about it. I was pumped. And look at this start I had to my 20K push. That was going to buy me a house and was going to make me a back-to-back-to-back 20K pusher, all these things. 189 to Bugsy, my Vegas chip. Darren canceled. Hot start to my push, first 2. 266, 364, a cancel, and a 348. In the moment, do you think I felt good about that? Not really. Like, that's a solid day. But in the moment, I was hoping I'd sell a big set or 2 people wouldn't cancel. That doesn't really look like a super great day. 2 cancels and 291 average order. It's a solid day for sure. But that's what it takes to win a push. It takes 14 days of that. 14 days of that exact same thing gives you a $16,296 CPO push. Who would be excited about a 16.2K push? Who's here ever done a 16K push? There should be very limited hands up right now. That's a special push. Dan, I see you with your hand up. Congrats, man. That's solid. A 16K push, very solid, right? It won't look like how you think it will look. It doesn't look like 8 signature sets. It doesn't look like 10 ultimate sets. It doesn't look like 16 homemaker sets. That's not what a push looks like when you're done. A push will look like a day like this. I think of Jack Ryan, Baller Pro, one of my good buddies. We did SC2 together. And Jared, we also did it with Jared a couple days. And Jared on the first day of SC2 sprinted out of the room and he goes, I sold an ultimate. I sold an ultimate. And he's freaking out. And I'm like, I'm freaking out. I'm like, that's my boy, you know? And then Baller Pro, funny story. He was in a demo at the time. And he goes, yeah, my guy I was doing a demo to said, oh, that guy must have sold big. I don't know, kind of funny. Baller Pro, we did the whole push together. He never freaked out like that one time. And he led the way for the Minneapolis office. I said, how'd you do it? Like, it doesn't seem like you have any big sales, you know? Have you had any big sets? He said, not really. But Baller Pro did 103 demos in 17 days, right? That's what it takes. That's grit. That's a push. And he didn't pop off any big sales necessarily. He had a couple sets here and there, but that's what it takes. It's a numbers game. So here's the keys to the beach. Just to wrap up. Number 1, stack your first day. Let the first day of your push create your push. If you need leads, go get them. If you need confidence, go sell some Cutco. First week focus. You don't need to do, 10K is 40 demos. You don't need to do 40 demos the very first week. You have 2 weeks to do it. You don't need to sell 10K the first week. If you do, props to you. If your goal is 10K, right? You don't need to do it all in the first week. But focus on the first week to set yourself up. The second week's always bigger. And the last thing is master recommendations. If you don't have the script, if you don't memorize the script and you don't get a bunch of leads, I don't necessarily feel bad for you because, right? If you want leads, you've probably memorized the script. You probably heard it 100 times before. I love you all, but there's no excuse to not having the approach memorized. Look what I've created for myself just from mastering Rex first by memorizing the script. The approach is one thing, but I want you to write this down. Keys to flipping Rex. Okay, write this stuff down. Number 1, categorize them as you receive them. Categorize. So ask for their husband's name. Ask if they're home during the daytime. Put a D by them. Have them star their top 3 recs that they give you. Who cooks the most and who would answer the phone in the morning. Those are some good ones. And then here's my first day again. I just wanted to point out Kahl was a part of that first day. And so I had 7 demos that day. It ended up being 3K in sales for the day, right? That's what happens when you have 7 demos. But get yourself to the beach. That momentum of just doing demos will fly you to the beach, right? Gulf Shores, Alabama. This is what I thought of when I thought of Alabama. It's a little different. I guess there's beaches and there's some other stuff. It's pretty special when you go on a vector trip, just surrounded by amazing people. I had great conversations last year with Jack Ryan, Elliot James. I didn't really know Elliot before the trip. He introduced me the other week to one of his friends as, this is the best man in my wedding someday. That's a special relationship I built just from talking with him on the trip. After the trip, I made him cry. We were talking about some stuff at the trip. It was awesome. On the way home, we texted each other just long paragraphs about how much like we were excited to work with each other. And that's really special. So if you're not motivated by the $2,000 to $5,000 income in 2 weeks, the push story to tell your future reps, the massive additions to your resume, the chance to sit on a beach when there's a foot of snow, the chance, right? Take the lifelong relationships into consideration when you think about this push. And so do something special for these 2 weeks, go get it. We're in a pandemic, tell your future kids about this someday, and do it while everyone else our age plays pond hockey and watches some Netflix. So that's what I have. Thank you all. I appreciate it. And go get it.
Love it. And this is Mr. Alex Funk. So give him some jazz hands or something. I'm muted. There you go. Look at all that love, Mr. Funk. I love hearing your stories of it does. Everybody that he talks about has a nickname, and that part makes it really, really funny whenever he's like, oh, it's showing to Stubbs over here. And Alex's push periods have happened the way that push periods happen, which is good, bad, everything in between. And he's very right in the terms of like the way to look at a push period is it's the full 2 weeks, and it's really just a process throughout the entire thing.